Well, our reaction to this and to the reform, the supposed reform that's being carried out by the government is that we see this as just a culling of councils and councillors. Sinn Féin want reform of local government. Sinn Féin wants strong local government. Sinn Féin wants effective local government. The problem with this is that the government has simply cut numbers. They have created large local electoral areas, very large ones, particularly in rural areas. Some of them, such as ones here in my hand in County Laois, which will be 40 metres or 40 kilometres from one end to the other. In some counties there will be up to 50-60 kilometres across. And the problem with that is that it will be difficult for councillors who are part-time people who do this after their day job, after 6 o'clock in the evening, to go out and to try and represent those huge electoral areas, which in effect will be as big as, in some cases, will be as big as County Louth. That's going to be a big ask, and it's going to be difficult for councillors to do that. The other real issue here is that the actual numbers of councillors, we suggested a higher number of 1170 to 1200. There's about 1600 at the moment. What's happened here is that we have 949 with this. If you make the comparison with other European countries, we have less councillors now per head of population than other European countries. Far less than 15 Northern and Western European countries. Even England will have more councillors than we have. And if you're going to have strong local government, local government has to be based and rooted in local communities. If you're 40 or 50 or 60 kilometres away from your constituents, you're not rooted in your local community. So the local element is going to damage the local connectivity and local accountability and local representation. And the big thing overall as well for Sinn Féin is that when we talk about real reform, it's not just about numbers or boundaries, it's also about giving councillors, these new councillors in these new areas, proper powers devolved from central government. You know, we have the most centralised state in Europe. Local government in this state is the weakest in Europe. That's an actual fact. The functions and powers of councils has been cut and restricted, and the lifeblood has been sapped out of local government by both Fine Gael, Labour, and before them Fianna Fáil. That's the actual facts of it. And the irony of it is this is supposed to be the great reform, but while they're carrying out this great reform, Mark, the other thing that they're doing is they're actually taking away one of the few substantial powers, I would say, of local government, one of the few ones that's left to them, which is water. Water is being taken away from councils this year. Ishcare and Irish Water is being created. And Sinn Féin really have a problem with that, because it's now going to go into a corporate entity. Local councillors will not have the say that they had over water, will not be able to represent their people, the local area or local people properly on this issue. And that's just one example. The other thing I would say about powers and functions is that since the 1940s, huge powers have shifted from councillors to unelected county managers. There's been much talk from the government, from both Labour and Fine Gael, about moving that back. I don't see any sign of that in the Putting People First document, as they call it, that they have published, and which these boundaries are based on. They're based on the criteria in that document. In actual fact, they're talking about that managers will become CEOs, and that's fine. We welcome that, if they become CEOs that are accountable to the elected members of the council. But we have seen nothing in terms of what powers will be transferred, and the few bits and pieces that I've mentioned are Mickey Mouse stuff, you know, such as the local tourist office, maybe the local council having some responsibility over that. You know, I'm not saying it's not important, but compared to major infrastructural responsibility, roads, sewerage, water, health, all of those issues, those powers are being sapped away, and that's the real issue here. So we need management in municipal districts. Of course we should have reform. These are, in a lot of rural areas, these are not going to be manageable because they're too large. It's going to lead to a huge connectivity problem. We have no sign of the powers that need to be transferred down from central government, and there's been no serious talk from the government in terms of shifting powers from county managers over to elected councillors, and that's the real issue. This is going to weaken local government in Ireland, unfortunately.